Is Rolex on the ropes because of the latest release from Zenith with the Chronomaster Sport in 18 karat rose gold? I'm your host, Kurt Brown. This is the Watch Factor, and we're in the news. Let's get started. In just the last week, I've uncovered that Zenith has released its very own Chronomaster Sport, but this time in 18 karat rose gold. Now, many of you are wondering, is this a formidable competitor to the Rolex Daytona on Oyster Flex? And I'll be honest, I think it is. In doing some research and preparing for this video, I went to the Zenith website just to learn a little bit more about the watch and what all was encompassed inside of it. And they clearly call out that they have reaffirmed their position as the undisputed master in high-end frequency chronographs. I don't know about you, but it sounds like we are taking the gloves off for Rolex. So let's dig a little bit further. Now, if you didn't know, the background story is that there has been a positive relationship to a degree between both the brands Zenith and Rolex. And in all actuality, the story goes that some of the earlier Rolex Daytona models actually had a Zenith caliber inside. Now, upon further research, you'll find out that that Zenith caliber was highly modified, and some go as far as to say with over 200 modifications. So there could be an argument, was it still just an original Zenith El Primero movement, or was it just the base and then Rolex did what it needed to do to actually improve the accuracy and some of the functionality of the actual movement? But let's go a little bit further into the background. So it's the late 1980s. Rolex is actually in attendance at Basel World and releases the new and improved Rolex Daytona. Now this is reference 165200, which actually had the Zenith Caliber 400, which is now going to become Rolex's 4030 movement. Now this watch has a 52-hour power reserve, a depth rating of over 300 feet. They have removed the plexi crystal for a more robust and harder sapphire crystal, which now makes this watch even more impressive than earlier versions. In addition, the case size is now at 40 millimeters, and the movement actually has over 31 jewels inside. For the next decade, or specifically for the next 12 years, this Zenith caliber continues to be housed in every Rolex Daytona that is released, up until Rolex decides to build its own caliber in-house movement and no longer continues to leverage that Zenith caliber. So fast forward to 2021, early January, Zenith decides to release the Chronomaster in steel, an impressive watch priced at just below $10,000 that has the same design elements as the Rolex Daytona, but one major difference: it's available. Most of you already know just about any Rolex on the market today, if you're trying to purchase at retail, consider a wait list anywhere from 2 to maybe 5 years, or just not at all, depending on the type of relationship you have with an AD. Most of us that desire or love these type of watches have found ourselves having to look at the gray market, where you've seen everything from 3X to even 6X, depending on which model, especially if you're looking at sports model Rolexes. Now, at the time of this actual video being released, the Chronomaster Sport in steel has already won the Best Chronograph award from the GPHG Foundation. Now, for those of you who are not familiar, the GPHG stands for the Grand Prix de Horologie de Genève. This is an organization that aims to highlight and reward watch companies for their creativity, continuing to push and foster the advancement of watchmaking, both from an art and from a technical stance. And it recognizes a number of different watch categories. If you haven't had a chance, I'll drop a link to the actual site so you can see some of the other winners from the 2021 award ceremony. Now let's look at the watch by the numbers. The Chronomaster Sport houses the El Primero 3600 caliber, which offers a chronograph movement that can track the 1/10 of a second display It actually beats at 5 Hertz or 36,000 VPHs, as well as providing a power reserve of 60 hours. Now the case comes in at 41 millimeters and the watch is in 18 karat rose gold, paired with a white dial and a black calfskin leather strap. The specific reference number is 18.3100.3600/69.CN20. The price of the watch is actually at $21,300. The central chronograph hand that makes it turn in 10 seconds also offers a 60-minute counter at the 6 o'clock, a 60-second counter at 3 o'clock. Now, although there are a number of different variations for the Chronomaster Daytona, I wanted to look at one specific, the one I thought was a fair comparison to the Zenith Chronomaster. So we're talking about the Chronomaster Daytona that's in EverRose Gold. It is on the Oyster Flex. It's a 40 millimeter, and it's actually currently priced at retail for $29,700. Later in this video, we'll get an opportunity to actually look at what the gray market is, since we know that right now it's pretty limited or basically non-existent that you can actually get one of these at retail from an AD unless you have an amazing purchase history with that retailer. Now, because the availability of the Daytona is so scarce, I think it's only right that we look and see, well, where is the availability at? And it is on the gray market. So if we jump over to Chrono 24, what we'll find is well over 150 different listings for the Rolex Daytona, specifically on Oyster Flex. But what I would draw your attention to is actually the markup in price because of the scarcity. So we're seeing on the low end the watch going for somewhere between the $40,000 to $42,000 mark, and as high as the $50,000 to $55,000 mark. Now, I will caution you here, please do your research when you're deciding to buy pre-owned. As you dig through some of these listings, you need to make sure you pay attention to the details. There are certain listings where they have used an aftermarket Rolex dial to create the look of this type of a Daytona. So it's worth just making sure you take time to ask questions, ask for additional information, find out if the watch is a full set, whether it comes with papers, the card, but just make sure you do your research. At the end of the day, if it's too good to be true, then it truly is. But I do think that one great thing about Chrono 24 is that you get access to a worldwide network of potential dealers or sellers to get access to some watches that otherwise you just wouldn't have an opportunity to get. But clearly you can see the markup of well over $10,000 to maybe $15,000 more than what you would get as a brand new watch purchase from your local AD. So in conclusion, did Zenith deliver a knockout blow? Probably not. At the end of the day, Rolex is still Rolex. It is a coveted brand that many people will wait years and sometimes decades if it means the opportunity to have one of their pieces. But I also give kudos to Zenith for challenging the status quo, for being brave or courageous enough to say, I can make a formidable competitor. I can make a watch that is just as good, and depending on your taste, depending on what boxes need to be marked, it could even be better. Now, at the end of the day, will the line be down the street with wait lists that exceed 2, 3, 4 years for the Chronomaster Sport in 18 karat rose gold? Probably not. But it does create an alternative that I think is worth looking into. And I applaud them, as well as other brands that are going to go ahead and step up to the plate and say, I can make a watch that is just as good, and if I believe so, better than what Rolex has to offer. I'll leave it up to you to decide, but I'd like to know your thoughts. So make a comment and let me know, do you think that the Chronomaster Sport in 18 karat rose gold outdoes the Daytona? Is it better? Would you make that your purchase? Or at the end of the day, would you still double down and go back to that wait list with Rolex? Well, again, I'm your host, Kurt Brown. This is the Watch Factor in the News. Thank you so much for watching. And if you haven't, please subscribe. It truly does help the channel grow, and I plan to send you more interesting content in the future. You guys have a wonderful day, and you take care.